Hi, this is Scott Trout, CEO of the domestic litigation firm Cordell & Cordell. There are many life changes that can happen after divorce that make it difficult or impossible to uphold requirements of your divorce decree. The orders issued in a divorce are based on the facts presented at that time, but the circumstances used in issuing those orders can obviously change. If you feel a modification to your court orders might be necessary, talk to us at Cordell & Cordell.
Contact CordellCordell.com, 1065 East Hillsdale Boulevard, Suite 310, Foster City, California, 94404.
Year of the kicker.
You're listening to Nearly Informed.
Still recovering, Ryan. Football weekend. You're right. It is the year of the kicker.
It is the year of the bad kicker.
And it's amazing. It's amazing because, and if you're, by the way, this is Nearly Informed. Brian Moote here. We have Ryan Dalton in today, comedian. And I'm sure if you're a football fan at all, you know, like this year, and I don't know why teams didn't kind of see this as a thing that was going to happen when they moved back the extra point to actually being a game-changing field goal now. But so many teams just aren't really putting any effort into the kicker. And one of them, Seattle, we have a 42-year-old kicker that looks like he's 60 and wears a tracksuit when he leaves, Sebastian Janikowski, who tore his hamstring or something missing kicks. But he's been missing kicks all year. And we had a great kicker 3 seasons ago, Stephen Hauschka, and they didn't want to pay him $1 million a season. They're like, that's too much money. No more. He's crushing it. And meanwhile, we just had nothing but a rotating door of bums missing field goals. And if you're a real football player on a team, right? You spend the entire game just destroying your body, decimating your body. You're in pain every day. You can barely walk the day after games. You're on all these pain pills and stuff. And then you work the entire game like, bring out the soccer player for the win.
Yeah. This is a year that the NFL learned how valuable a kicker really was. Because of what you just said, you're like, oh, it's just some dude. You go out and kick your stupid ball, do your little trick, horsey, go out there.
Right.
And we all took it for granted because some of these dudes we all believed them to be automatic from 50 yards out. This is the first year we just saw people that just had jobs who shouldn't have had these jobs. The Cleveland Browns lost their kicker. He cost them a game that probably would have helped them get into the playoffs this year. They had to get another kicker. In the past, the Cleveland Browns were so bad, our best player was the kicker, Phil Dawson. So much so, we paid him all the money. We gave him the franchise tag.
Jeez.
We gave the kicker the franchise tag, and the next year he wanted more money. We let him go. He went to the 49ers because we couldn't pay him. We couldn't justify paying.
That's actually funny. If you're not familiar with the franchise tag, you basically get the highest salary in that position.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you don't have that many franchise tags. I don't know if you only have one.
I think you have one franchise tag.
But how sad is it? That just speaks to the state of your team in Cleveland when your best player, like, we only got one franchise tag. Who are we going to use it on? Well, we got like some mediocre wide receivers that are, the kicker.
Yeah, we need to keep him. He's our offense.
We cannot lose this guy. Last night, I pulled a move. I don't know if I'm proud of this or embarrassed. But my girlfriend lives in Atlanta. I'm in Los Angeles. The national championship, Alabama versus Clemson, started at 5 o'clock West Coast time. So did the Bachelor premiere. And she was like, watch it with me. Like, I need you to make fun of these people. I need jokes. I just can't watch it. I need to be able to, the references. It's very important.
Right.
Does your wife Ashley watch The Bachelor?
We watch it together. I did not watch it with her last night because I was down at the Comedy Store, but we do watch it. In fact, every year I get asked to be in a bracket, which is kind of manly. Like, you're making it kind of manly about it.
It's the best attempt we have. It'd be like if they could come up with a fantasy Bachelor league.
Yeah, right.
Where like the first girl to cry, every time a girl cries, gets points and stuff.
Yeah.
We do try to find ways to make those things manlier, just so we don't feel so terrible.
But I mean, I after how many 9,000 seasons of this show, it's like, dude, you're just honeypotting these chicks. Like, oh, you're meeting in a mansion. Every date you go on is literally the best date you could never even possibly
helicopters to obscure islands all over the place, and then people are falling in love. It's funny now because it's become almost what the real world evolved to, which I actually appreciate. When MTV has stopped trying to make them work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're like, this is a ruse. We're not get a job in Vegas. No, just go get drunk, have fun, get in fights, sleep with each other, make it crazy.
Yeah, and then rent gets paid just like the real world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They live in like this giant house, you know? Like in Vegas, they lived on like the 12th floor of like the Palms or something. They had the whole floor. It's ridiculous.
And in Seattle, they lived on a pier.
Yeah, on a pier. You can't even, you can't live on the pier.
They lived
There's
in the fish market.
Exactly. There's no place. They'll be like, hey, people want to go to the Real World house in Seattle, and they go there, and they're like, this isn't a house. This is just a building on the water. Yeah. It's like a warehouse that they turned into at this point, hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, you couldn't buy that house.
In one episode, they're fishing through the floor.
Yeah. Or at the windows and stuff.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. The thing with The Bachelor now is nobody's finding love. You know, like on our show, we've had the option to have Ben Higgins on, and I just know I'm not going to waste my time with any more of these guys. I've already had my time wasted by my girlfriend making me watch these shows and get invested, and that's the sad part. I get invested after a while where I'm like furious that some girl moved on or some guy moved on, and then when that relationship doesn't work out, because no one's on that show for love, they're on that show for a career. They want to be in show business, and they want people to like, they want to have a following. Then it's like, I'm not going to let them waste one more second of my time. These people, no.
But the beginning of the series is really entertaining.
Oh, and they're all making their entrances?
Yeah, because some of them are like put up to it, but some of them come up with their own crazy gimmicks to get attention. And I mean, you can really see here the wackadoodles who are just not going to make it.
Costumes.
Special cars and stuff, like riding in on a horse.
Or a camel or something weird.
Yeah.
So you haven't watched the first episode of Colton the Virgin yet?
No, I haven't.
So last night I was live streaming on my computer from ABC Dayton, channel 22. I was live streaming through some weird Ukrainian website in one ear, the Bachelor premiere, so I could actually have a conversation later with my girlfriend while also watching the national championship game. And I was live tweeting, like I was simul tweeting. And this guy Colton, the Virgin, is hilarious because he's a 26-year-old former professional athlete, college athlete, who just hasn't had sex yet because he just doesn't want to. He's 26. He's not religious, which if it's not religious, then what the hell is it?
Yeah. It's a choice. Get out of here.
And you're a professional athlete?
You're the biggest star in your entire college, and you're like, I'm just going to
he was a tight end at the University of Colorado and goes to the NFL for a couple seasons. I mean, he didn't really play much, but, I mean, there's something there that's weird. And at first I thought he was lying.
I think he's lying right now.
I thought he was lying, Ryan. Then I saw him try to slow dance with a girl, and he's so clumsy and awkward. I'm like, this guy's never had sex. There's no way. And here's the thing. He has all the cheat codes to be, like, the guy is shredded. He's good looking. He's got like this kind of like awkward sweetness to him. Like he looks like a sweet guy. Like he looks like a guy who you immediately hate, but then you start talking to him, you're like, all right, you're kind of a nice guy. Like, I don't hate you as much. And every single woman in the world thinks that they could change, that they'd be the one.
Sure.
Like, that's the brilliance of it. And they were doing, all these girls are rolling in there, and you'll see it when you finally watch the premiere, but one girl comes out with an Australian accent. This I respected. And he's like, whoa, I like the accent. Where are you from? And the girl goes like, the accent's from Australia. And then she gets in the house. She's like, "I'm not Australian, man." She's like, "You just got to stand out.
Good
somehow.
icebreaker.
You just got to stand out somehow."
Yeah.
Do you feel like? So I start watching this show every year, and it always makes me crazy because I start watching it, and I'm like, "Man, I hate this show, Jessica. Why do you make me watch this?" And then by the end of it, I'm like, "What the hell was that?"
Yeah.
He kept Amanda.
Yeah.
Really?
You're rooting for people. You're hating on others.
Oh my
you're real
God.
invested. Yeah.
Have you just given up on like trying to fight that at all with your wife, or did you ever?
We never watched The Bachelor before. We got into it from day one last year, and then I was like, I'm kind of into this because I like playing the game of who's going to make it till the end. Because as you may know this, that Jimmy Kimmel loves the show.
Yeah,
and like he's like within like 80% accurate of guessing who's going to win like every year.
Really?
Like they have their own little pool. So I was like, that makes it entertaining for me if I can kind of figure out who's going to be the right one. And the one I picked, it made my wife so mad was last year. There was this girl who was like 21, but she was a smoke show, and like even she showed up in like an old Mustang, and this guy was a race car driver.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
like, oh, dude, this dude.
Ari was a serial killer. I hated that dude.
Yeah, he
guy.
looked at her as she walked away from the first meeting, and he went under his breath. He's like, oh my God, she's so hot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, she's gonna make it to the final. She may not win because of youth, but she's definitely getting to the end.
Yeah, that is the thing, is that you have a situation where people try to act like it's more than just this superficial, and it's like, no, it's not. The first 3 episodes are like, you're hot, smoke show, out, done, don't like you. Producers are putting these ones through because they're crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Like the nutty ones. I remember last year was one where I physically wanted to fight Ari. Like, I was so mad because
he was the worst.
Because he picked the one, Becca, right? And then he broke it off with her on TV, and then at the rose ceremony, or that
was the most awkward television of all time.
Oh, for sure.
He broke it off.
He's like, "What? Are you okay in there?"
His silence was deafening.
He was knocking on the door. "Are you okay in there?" She's like, "No, I'm not okay." You jerk. And then, you know what else I hated about it? This is what I hated about that one too, is that he made that girl Becca the automatic Bachelorette, right? Mm-hmm. And she wasn't good either. It was like super boring.
I don't watch The Bachelorette. I don't care about that. I don't want to see. I know this is one side. I just don't want to see dudes act pathetic. I just can't do it. I don't want. I'm like, oh, come on, dude, stop crying.
And you know what, man?
You don't care that much.
And the thing about this virgin is they don't care. They don't care that they're just, this dude's life is like going to be, he's going to get destroyed by these women. At the end of the first episode, they show him, at some point in time, he runs from the mansion, this sad virgin.
Oh.
He climbs a fence and runs away.
Oh, I wish it was electrified.
Like he's retreating, and they're like, Colton, and he's like down that bachelor maintenance, like runs down the hill and he's hiding.
No.
It's ridiculous.
I'm not like that with that show, but my wife watches every single Bravo television show.
Yeah.
And I was very against it. I would leave the room. But because she kept at it, I'm now a fan of these shows.
Some of them are great.
Some
Below
of them are
Deck,
fantastic.
Mediterranean.
Real Housewives of Atlanta.
See that Atlanta
Below
one.
Deck's great.
Atlanta one, my girlfriend.
Vanderpump Rules, that's my number one.
I mean, Vanderpump is the.
I'm in on every episode. I have to have a cocktail every time I watch Vanderpump Rules.
Every time my girlfriend comes out, she wants to go to Pump, Sir, like all those restaurants. All right, we are going to continue talking about selling out and stuff that you do. Coming up next.
This is Nearly Informed with Brad and Brian.
It's Nearly Informed. Brad is out today. His family's back. Declan and Nikki are back from their, I almost said month-long hiatus from here, but that's kind of like, it wasn't like, family isn't a job.
No.
Like a hiatus. They were just
It wasn't vacation either, but they took time.
No, they were just up in Seattle.
Yeah.
Ryan Dalton's in. We were just talking a second ago about selling out, like the thing. Like I at this point don't even care anymore. Like I'll go get pedicures. I'll eat cheese boards. Like
I mean, I'll eat it. Who doesn't want a cheese board?
Well, I used to not be like fancy cheese guy.
Oh, I know.
Like
I know. I saw what your fridge used to look like. There was cheese in there, but
That's
it wasn't.
right.
It wasn't even normal cheese. It was just formed cheese.
Ryan lived with me pre-radio career. We all lived together in. He lived on the floor in the living room that I lived in, and the floor is disgusting.
It was dirt carpet.
It was carpet that had, like, you could, if you just, like, smushed your foot into the carpet, you could vacuum it and then smush your foot in the carpet and still feel crumbs.
Like, if you've seen football, like when they play on turf and then they go to slow
drag
motion
their foot.
and they drag their foot and all that stuff pops up, that's what the carpet was like.
It was like...
Except it wasn't rubber pellets.
You go to slow motion and the dragging of the foot is just Doritos. Just orange Doritos
So
flying.
disgusting.
It was awful, but no one... The thing is, like, once you don't care about your living situation... Like, we didn't care at all. We were like, whatever, man. I don't care. I'm not going to live in this squalor forever. Though, we were pretty close to living in that squalor forever. I mean, it took me going, you know what, I'm just going to give radio a try.
I remember I was in the room when you got the phone call.
When I got then that was probably the funniest conversation I've ever had in my life with someone in the business who has, like, corporate responsibility. When the guy was like, hey, would you be willing to come up here for $65,000 and health insurance? And I was real quiet.
You were like, health insurance?
Oh, my God. I haven't had that in years.
Tell me more.
Oh, my God. I'm like, I felt like one of those, when you're like 20,000 miles overdue on your oil change. That's how my body felt.
I've just been ignoring these cavities.
And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, is that insulting? I don't know how much you make as a comedian. And I'm like, this guy has no idea. That right now I'm sitting on like chip crumbs in a carpet. My weird chihuahua is licking my feet. That's probably why she got into licking feet, because it was always just food crumbs all over your feet. It's disgusting. God. And Ryan lived on a futon just outside my sheet wall. And it was a real interesting time in my life. You know, it really made me appreciate the finer things, like a car with insurance that runs.
That you can go over 25 miles an hour.
I had a 91 Honda Civic that would only go 45 miles an hour. If I went over 45 miles an hour for more than like 5 seconds, something would happen in the sensors in the car, and it would just shut the engine down. It would shut it down. Like, it would shut it off. I'd have to, like, compression start it on the freeway, like, while it was a real safe situation.
Like, if you wouldn't go back to the future if you passed 45. You would go back to the auto shop.
Yeah, it was the saddest situation. And then the electric seatbelt broke in, like, the forward position. It had that one seatbelt was like along the rim. And then there's no way to look cool. Like, you can't hit on girls at a stoplight with your electric seatbelt broken halfway through the thing. So I called you on Saturday or what? I was talking to you about, you were doing old man stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to start a new segment with Ryan when he's in called Old Man Stuff with Ryan Dalton.
I'm really settling into my old man ways.
Because I love it. You are getting to the point now where you told me the other day you refuse to buy new things. You're going to fix everything.
I am, and I'll tell you why. Not because I'm great at it. It's because YouTube exists. You can YouTube how to fly a helicopter. Do you know that?
I haven't seen that one, but I did this one. I took auto shop when I was in high school, and then when we were in our super broke days back in the chip carpet apartment, I told my roommate Andrew that I could change his disc brakes. I've changed brakes. I'd done it before in my life, and I YouTubed how to do that, and then I did it. Really not a safe way.
Yeah, no.
I mean, that's not good.
I'm going to leave that to the professionals.
I mean, brakes,
car stoppings, yeah.
I mean, it worked.
That to the pros.
It worked. I did it twice for him. It worked every time. But you're right.
Kidding.
You can find everything on YouTube.
Yeah, one of my blinds broke, and instead of buying just one new horizontal blind, just easy fix, there's a little roller motor inside of it. I went to 3 different department stores looking.
Are they
for that
electric?
thing. No, it's just the little roller. You know how you roll, and all of a sudden the blinds will all of a sudden be open.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean you're talking about like the thing that actually twists?
Yeah.
Okay, so you had to buy like the little apparatus.
Nobody has that piece because they're hoping you just go buy the whole blind.
Right, that's like...
And I won't do it. I refuse. I'm like, I just want that piece. I need the piece. So
that's like if you have a lighter, like a disposable lighter that runs out and you're like, I need a new flint for this. I need flint. They're like, just get a new one. No. The wheel's still good, man.
I'm not paying 90 cents for
the wheel still spins and there's still fluid in here. I want a little flint.
Right.
Give me a flint.
And so I replaced that, and my dryer broke too. But instead of like getting,
you had the courage to do the dryer.
Oh, dude, very dangerous, by the way. Yeah, the dryer is
very dangerous, by the way. Of course,
it's like, a lot of electricity.
It's all electricity
and gas. This one's attached to a gas line as well.
So you have gas that's heating the air.
Yes,
right. But that's fire. That's flames. Somewhere.
You can hear it kick on like a furnace when it's working.
So you decide, what did you have to fix on it?
I had the knob. After I took the thing apart I watched a bunch of videos. After I took the thing apart, I even bought a device to measure current in between circuits.
Wow.
Yeah, and I was like, this is scary because the thing about working with electricity is the reason electricians get paid is there is a enormous margin of error that is fatal, easily fatal.
I don't mess with electricity. That's one thing. Like, I will do painting. I'll do just random. I'll demo. I'll build. I'll use saws. I'll cut wood. But electricity, I'll even do plumbing. I've replaced toilets because I know how to turn the water off.
Yeah.
But like electricity, even if I shut down all the circuits, I still don't trust that wire.
Oh, God.
And I think it's because I grew up around electric fences on a farm where I just never knew even when that was off, you're like, come on, who's going to test it? Who's going to grab the fence? Like, who's going to see if this actually is off? I never trust myself.
And it was very scary. And then, so I pulled the thing apart. I'm pulling out screws. I mean, I took the drum out at one point.
Jeez.
I did the whole thing. And then I look one more video, and I'm really frustrated because I'm losing my mind. They're like, yeah, you want to check to see if the knob is broken? and the knob was broken. After I pulled the
So
thing
that was
apart.
the only thing was like the what
It
knob?
just was broken. It was the temperature knob, and that's on the outside, and it just cracked, so it can't turn the screw that activates the temperature.
Oh, so you could turn the knob, but nothing was happening?
Yeah, because it would just click because the thing had fractured, and you just need a new knob that's one piece. That's all it was.
So, but at least you got to like find out what your whole.
Yeah, so I got new knobs coming, but then today, I'm sitting there, I'm doing some laundry, and all of a sudden I go to push the button for like what kind of like do you want heavy heat, low heat, and then I go to push it, and it goes through the complete back of the. I break it, and I'm like,
shoved it into the dryer.
yes, and I go, no, this thing hates me because I probably left out a few screws when I put it back together.
Right, you took that circuit
there
board
was like
out.
3 or 4 leftover screws. So I open up the back, and it had pushed through, and so instead of and I'd broken the plastic clips that keep it, and I'm
Right,
like,
so now it's just gonna. It's never gonna have anything holding it pressure on the back.
So I duct taped it completely, like just 17 layers of duct taping to get it to stay in place forever, and then screwed it back together.
That's about as old man as it gets.
I'm really settling into this.
When you go to duct tape, like that's that level of frustration where you're like, you know what? I don't need this to be safe for other people, just for me.
It works.
I just need it to work.
I figured.
Remember, my
it out.
dad used to. We used to have this hay truck, right? So on the farm, we used to have this hay truck, and it had no floorboard. Like the floorboard just like fell out of it, and my dad had taped it like from underneath the truck, had taped it up, and then the whole thing just ended up falling out. So you'd be sitting in the truck and you're looking down, and the road's going by, right? Mm-hmm. And then up around there was areas that didn't have holes. Was all this garbage and like beer cans and stuff because then they're all out on the stacking hay bales. Of course, they're all drinking Budweiser. And he'd be like, hey, try not to let any of that garbage. But the garbage is like rattling out and falling onto the street like screws. I remember one time he had a Leatherman knife, a brand new Leatherman knife.
Those are great.
Yeah, they're like these utility knives.
Great tool. Every old man should have one.
And you put them right on the belt.
Yeah.
They come with that leather belt strap, which I've never, ever worn a knife on my belt in my whole life.
I did in Boy Scouts.
Boy Scouts?
Yeah, you had a
Boy
Swiss
Scouts?
Army knife. You had to have a Swiss Army knife.
My mom wouldn't let us do Boy Scouts because we lived in the country, and she was like, just go out and learn stuff on your own.
That's funny.
She's like, Mom, they learn how to like build fire. She's like, go build one.
Like, you don't know how to build a fire?
Well, yeah, you guys do that every weekend. I'm like, yeah, with gasoline. Like, they learn how to do it with sticks. My mom's like, why would you want to learn how to do it with sticks when you have gasoline?
You can learn knots, which I did. I only learned how to make a square knot. That was it.
We had a Leatherman knife got my brother Patrick kicked it out onto the street, and my dad stopped the hay truck, but he couldn't turn it around because we're on like a 2-lane road in the middle of nowhere, and he walked back like. It probably took him like 45 minutes to find this Leatherman. And Pat and I were just sitting in the truck. The truck was on because he was afraid to turn it off, of course, because he didn't know if it'd start again. And then we just got this old flatbed truck full of beer cans. He probably doesn't have his driver's license on him. And now he's just waiting. Like, we're just waiting for cops to come by with 2 kids just sitting in a truck that's on. No seatbelts, no floorboards. Like the most illegal thing ever. But that was the 80s for you.
Yeah.
Like the 80s, I feel like all of a sudden everyone just like got common sense. It was like, oh, we probably should have seatbelts.
Yeah, or at least, yeah. I mean, it's like, or maybe we should make it a law that you wear a seatbelt.
Right, like death isn't.
Now, I remember pre-seatbelt law. I remember that.
Well, like it was
a big deal when seatbelts became a law. It was like a huge deal.
My dad refused to wear them. He still does.
I know people like that.
He won't wear them. And
I'm like, you're getting into my rights.
Yeah, I'm not
like,
gonna.
All right,
I'm like, Dad, you're an idiot. If you. Like 1 year, well, he's like, you think I'm going to fly through the windshield? I'm like,
yeah, physically, yeah.
Well, I'm like,
There's
not.
Lots of proof of that happening.
Probably not you at this point. You're a little too big for that. But it doesn't stop you from dying with your head wedged through a windshield.
Or getting impaled by the steering column.
Yeah, well, it doesn't stop you from dying. But also the thing is, like, it was that stubbornness of like, I'm not going to tell me to wear a seatbelt or a bike helmet.
Can you imagine, like, back in the day, like the 50s, you get in a car crash, you're just bouncing around the inside of a car like a ping pong ball,
my God.
breaking everything.
Like those Ford LTDs with no back seatbelts. And then finally they'd put one in, and like there'd be like 9 kids.
It was like
in
one.
It
was one belt across the whole bench.
Every kid in there. All right, coming up next, we are going to talk. I want to run. Ryan is a stand-up comic, so I want to run. We've had a lot of comics in the news over the last month, from Kevin Hart, Louis C.K., Tiffany Haddish. I also want to talk about some of the worst times ever that we've bombed on stage. That'll be fun. That's coming up next on Nearly Informed.
Find Nearly Informed on Instagram and Twitter at Nearly Informed.
It's Nearly Informed. I'm Brian Moote. Ryan Dalton in studio, hanging out. Stand-up comedian, Ryan Dalton. He's worked the road a lot.
I've been on the road a long time.
Well, there's a difference, though. I mean, I always love it when, and I know a lot of comedians that work in radio as well, but they're generally more radio people who start doing comedy, and they don't really know what the road is. You know what I mean? They don't really know what that is.
They know that they want to do it. Because living in Los Angeles is a huge hub of stand-up comedians. But they all, just like every comic wants something they're not doing. Even if, and then every other comic wants the thing that comic is already doing.
Right. No one's happy for each other.
No. So I was like, every comic here who's like starting out being successful, they're not working the road. And then they'll say, and they're like, oh man, how do you work the road? I mean, I want to do it. And I'd be like, abandon all ye hope, those who enter here. Because it's like, you need to diversify. You can't just do one thing. You got to do a little bit of both so you can kind of get better at both. Because if you just do one thing, it can really burn you out. And working the road was burning me in half. I could not. It was just, it's so much. For all the good performing you get to do, there's so many miserable things you have to do.
Well, I was telling my brother Patrick, because when I was in Atlanta, and I tell comics that do radio that are blessed with a platform and have people come to their shows immediately, that this isn't the road. The road, you got to go. They don't know you. That's the road. Okay, I'm not. If you're a headlining comic selling out theaters and stuff, good for you. That's great. Those are fun shows.
Right.
Those are a hoot. Everyone loves being loved.
Yeah.
No. The road is places that no one knows you. So in Atlanta, my brother Patrick was going up on these shows, and they were packed. And he was always doing great because people who were going they heard our stories on the radio.
He's extremely likable.
Yeah, and he's he's going to fail. He's going to talk about, this and that, and it's going to be funny. But he was like, I want to work the road. And I was like, all right, man. Well, you want to see what the road's like? Here's what the road's like. I booked us a show in Panama City. Not Panama City Beach, Panama City. Like the redneck suburb of Panama City Beach. Like the town of the people who loathe the people who come to Panama City Beach, and they have to work there. They have to work at all the places, all the restaurants, all the bars, all that stuff. And we drove down. I was telling him it was a VFW the whole time. And it was an American Legion. It was one of the
20-cent beers. That's all that matters.
Exactly. And sign said no cursing. It was literally
the sign said no cursing
above the bar, and it said
no science either.
Exactly.
Get out of here with that.
And they were serving barbecue.
Oh yeah.
And we were supposed to do an hour and a half, and I was like, I think I messed up by trying to teach him what the road was like, right? So we walk in there, and he's like, how much time should I do? I'm like, just do as much as you can. I'll cover the rest of it. And he was calling it a VFW the whole time, and they were getting mad because it's an American Legion. It's different. There's different. They're not the same. They're military-oriented, but they're different. Then I get up. Oh, first thing he does is 5 minutes in, drops an F-bomb.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not happy about that. He does like maybe 15 minutes, and at one point in time, I set the microphone stopped working, which is always key. When the microphone just stops working, like the cable was bad. Mm-hmm. And an old man came up and just goes, keep doing your thing, with no microphone
no
working.
Here.
Yeah, and this guy's on stage fiddling with like an old 1970s soundboard. And he ate it. Like, we all ate it. Well, it was just he and I. I sat down to get a beer right after the show because I was like, I'm going to have a beer before I get out of here. I'm trying to get paid. All of a sudden, I heard my brother arguing with like some 70-year-old man behind him. And he goes, you think we did an adequate job helping out Puerto Rico? And I was like, you know what? I got to get out of here.
Start the car.
It's time to go.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring it up, comics and road work, is Tiffany Haddish over New Year's. She had a gig down in Miami, and she's been working hard. She's really kind of had a meteoric rise to fame and selling out, theaters, like borderline stadium-ish type. I don't think she's at stadiums, but, big theaters, big venues, convention centers. Those big rooms are not the best. If you're used to, like, a lot of high-energy club comedy, it's not the best to be on a stage in front of 1,000 people. And she ate it real bad, was drinking on stage, probably hammered. We've all been there at one point in time.
Man.
Too much to drink on stage.
Lord knows.
And didn't go well. Everyone's talking about, is she funny? Is she not funny? I don't really care about all that. But I thought how she handled it was pretty good. It was like, hey, yeah, I didn't go well.
Yeah.
She didn't deflect. She was like, yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, I bombed. Yes, it's going to happen. And it'll probably happen again. That's what happens.
Yeah, and I tell people those nights are the worst. The New Year's Eves, because of the energy, the expectations. Everybody's like pre-funking. Everyone's ready. People probably have flasks on them.
New Year's Eve is the only time in comedy where comedians get a raise. It's the only time where you get paid a premium. Now, of course, she makes a premium because she's famous.
She's selling out the venues.
Yeah, she's selling out. But, I mean, it's the only time you get a raise. And I've always was like, why is that? And I know why. Because on that midnight show, you're dealing with some werewolves in the audience.
Just
some
hammered.
just amateurs. Just people who've been thinking about this, made these plans for 2 weeks. Now, I mean, me and you were like, let's go get a beer after this podcast, whatever, no big deal. But these are people who like live, in the real world, and they're like, this is it. We're going to really rip it up, New Year's Eve, and then they are just like entitled on top of it, where it's like, make us laugh, funny boy, you clown.
Funny. Well, and it's always the end. People pay a premium, too.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the other thing, too, is that people pay more money, and they're already mad. They'd be like, well, I've been to that comedy club before. $25?
Yeah, right.
And you're like, oh, man, here we go.
What's that include? A plastic flute of cooks?
Exactly. The champagne toast at a comedy club is the most overhyped thing.
Oh, it's the worst. I did a comedy club one time, and I love these. I do still play this place, but they had a New Year's Eve show, and they paid me a little bit more. And I remember I was sitting there, and I was in the middle of my set. And I've done New Year's Eve many years in a row. And at one point, I'm checking my watch. I'm like, it's getting close to midnight. Is there a screen that's supposed to come down?
Like, you guys want me to keep the count?
Yeah, like it was, and they did. They didn't even remember to pass out the champagne that they made people pay for. I had to do it off my phone, which it turned out to be like 5 minutes late.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
I've had both those settings. I had once where I was doing New Year's Eve at a club in Seattle, and the owner was like, I like flat out, I'd done about 55 minutes, and I knew I got on stage where it was going to be about an hour and 5 minutes to New Year's Eve, right? And I'm 55 minutes in, and I don't know what it's going to be. Are someone going to do a countdown from the back mic? Should I do 5 minutes of jokes after New Year's? Should we just cheers and the show's over, which is the best way to go? And so I finally go from the mic up the stage. I'm like, hey, man, what are we doing? And he goes, I don't care. Like, you just yelled out, I don't care, in a room full of 150 people who all think this is like some big night.
Yeah.
And I go, what about the champagne toast? And he goes, they can drink them in the bar. They were on the bar. This lazy jerk just poured them in the thing. So I had to do the same thing. I count down on my phone, which was deflating. I also had one, I did a club in Tacoma, Washington. I love the Tacoma Comedy Club is one of my favorites, right? It's a great club down in Tacoma, south of Seattle. And Adam Norwest is the owner, and he's a good friend of mine. But he's too good a friend where, like, we came up together in Seattle, so he feels a little bit, like, too comfortable with me.
I got a friendship like that, too.
Yeah, but also, like, I'd done, like, an hour. He had an iPad up on the stage that had the countdown, and he's like, hey, I'm going to come up on the countdown, too. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I had to drive. I waived the hotel because I wanted to stay in Seattle.
Right.
I had to drive an hour back to Seattle, right?
On New Year's Eve.
On New Year's Eve. So I wasn't drinking, right? And we go to the New Year's Eve toast, like 3, 2, 1, Happy New. And this dude takes a bottle of champagne, shakes it up, and just hoses me down like a dancer in a rap video.
Oh.
And I'm sitting there, and I'm just destroyed with champagne because he's hammered. And I'm like, dude, I have to drive back to Seattle right now covered in champagne. If I get pulled over for like a blinker or a taillight, and I'm telling them, like, yo, I haven't been drinking, they're like, I've never smelled more booze in my life. Get out of the car. You know what I mean? Like, this is just bad for my life. Like, and someone was asking me the other day, like, well, what do you think about Tiffany Haddish on New Year's? And I was like, well, dude, if you don't bomb a New Year's Eve show at some point in time, like, I really don't think you're doing comedy.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love, people love to watch you fall. And and it's like, yeah, she had a bad show, and yeah, it was a lot of people. You still got to bring your A game. Maybe she wasn't feeling it that night. Maybe she was overworked, but she didn't bring it, and she took a L.
Yeah,
we all take L's, but at least she admitted it. She wasn't like blaming the audience. It just didn't go the way she thought it was going to go.
You know what the fascinating thing about the whole thing nowadays too is that if she hadn't bombed and had like that bad thing happen, right? Where it's like clearly her head wasn't in the game that night. She's been working hard. She was drinking. She was in Miami, man. She just wants to party. I think she would rather just have 2,000 people come and hang out with her in a room.
Yeah.
Where she's just drinking and walking around high-fiving, talking to everyone, not having to perform, right? If she hadn't have done that, we wouldn't even know. Her name trended all over the internet for like 3 days.
Yeah.
So if the next 4 or 5 shows she has, that doesn't happen again and she goes out and crushes it, well, then this whole bombing situation just ended up being a lot of PR for her. That's good. So I'm kind of thinking I want to orchestrate some sort of like phony on stage like chaos that gets me trending on the internet.
Nah, just do it naturally. I'm sure that set's coming up for you.
No, I want to have it controlled though. I don't want
Controlled bomb, controlled explosion.
Yeah, exactly. I want to like
when you detonate a building.
Exactly. Like I want to be the guy walking into the stage with like the bomb protective stuff for the cops.
I don't think it works that way.
All right, to close out the show, I want to get your thoughts on Louis C.K. coming back. He's making an attempt.
This is Nearly Informed with Brad and Brian.
Brad's out today.
Flying somewhere.
I mean, he's always like, he was flying yesterday.
You remember when he asked me, he's like, hey, you want to go flying with me? I'm like, you're not going to Buddy Holly me, dude. I don't care. I don't care if you're in the Air Force. I don't know you that well. Get out of here.
I know. He tried to do this thing. He's been doing this to me.
Hey, you should fly with me. No, man. Sorry.
He's been this thing.
Is your name United? Get out of here.
Right, exactly.
Beat it.
Southwest. He's doing this thing to me where he's like, yeah, man, we should get a plane. And by that, I mean, get a plane share service. I'm like, stop trying to trick me into letting you fly me around. I'm like, if I'm going to do that, I'll learn how to fly. I'll learn how to fly myself. Also, I don't feel the need to do that.
No.
I don't feel the need to do anything that excessive anymore.
No, I don't. I'm not trying to prove anything.
Right? I feel like there's a point in time in your life where you just give up on like some of those. You know, I remember when I was like probably in my 20s, I was like, yeah, man, you know, I'm going to get a black belt at some point. Or, you know, I just had like these weird.
Never.
You know what I mean?
I swore to myself when I moved to Los Angeles that I would learn Spanish. I've been here 3 years. I don't know any Spanish.
I've done that too, actually.
I swore to myself. I said if I ever move to Los Angeles, the first thing I'm going to do is learn Spanish.
I've done the same exact thing where I actually downloaded like a free Spanish app that the app will like sadly remind me. I turned off the notifications on it because I got so sick of like the sad
you didn't
reminder.
understand what it was saying.
No, it would go like, hey Brian, like the notification. Hey Brian, there's some new stuff on Duolingo if you wanna, check it out.
Don't you love it when your phone just does that with your unused apps? Like, remember me?
Candy Crush.
You
is
were
doing
into
this
me
to
for
right
a
now.
second.
Candy Crush is like, hey Brian, there's some like new bonus levels on Candy Crush. I'm like, I only downloaded you because my girlfriend loves Candy Crush and
I need something to do when I'm taking a dump.
That's even Candy Crush?
Yeah.
I just refreshed Twitter.
Ashley is on like level 1500.
Yeah, Jessica's on that like something crazy.
I got her into it. I got her addicted to it. It was on Christmas break last year.
And now she's on 1500?
Yeah. She doesn't play, man.
Where does she play it at?
She plays it in our living room while she's watching TV.
That's unbelievable.
And then this is my favorite thing. I'll see her playing it, and then all of a sudden I'll be on my phone, and she'll get off her phone and she'll start talking to me. She's like, "Why are you on your phone?" I'm like, "The only reason you're talking to me is you got bored with your phone."
Yeah, or you ran out of free lives. Or whatever.
You ran out of you don't have enough lollipop
and
hammers.
It's lollipop hammers, and it's trying to get you to finally pay for something that you refuse to pay for. I got on Candy Crush. I thought my girlfriend for the longest time was like multitasking. I thought she was like replying to emails because she works in real estate,
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that when she was on Candy Crush, we were on vacation, and I was trying to talk to her. We were driving on vacation. We were driving to the beach in Florida, like Destin, Florida, and she's on her phone, and I'm like trying to be respectful. I'm like trying to have a conversation because also I'm bored to no end, and I can't do anything. Like I'm driving, and she's on her phone, and I thought she was replying to emails because she's like, "Oh, big busy real estate agent." And I look over finally, and she's playing Candy Crush. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm playing Candy Crush. I'm like, you can't, as a passenger in a car, play Candy Crush. I could still reply to you. And I'm like, yeah, but no, I just feel like you're not listening. Like, your lollipop hammer game. You're over there smashing candy. But don't you wonder now, because I played on an airplane. We were flying to New Orleans like 3 weeks ago. And I got to like level 40. And it took me the whole airplane flight. And she's on like level 1700 or something too, like up in the like close to 2000. And I'm like, how long? Like, where do you find the time? Like, are you? Because she's a nurse, right?
Yeah.
Like, does she ever break out Candy Crush at the hospital?
No. If she does, it's probably on break. But if she's on this, she's on like a different job right now because she's injured. She waits till she gets home and the reason I know she waits is because you have to wait a long time to get free stuff sent to you. So she can't conquer a level, so she'll stop playing. So she
put
can
it
get
away.
free stuff down the road.
That because the app tries to trick you into paying for stuff.
Oh yeah.
It's like, do you want to take some extra spins so you don't have to lose that level?
Life is over for you
I
if
don't
you're
really-
paying for stuff in an app game.
And Candy Crush?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Quit.
Also over Christmas, like right around, I think it was like the 17th or 18th, Louis C.K., comedian, he had some sexual misconduct issues with some female comedians that he admitted to. So I think at this point it's just he accepted the fact that he was a creep with those women. I don't know him personally, and I don't know a lot about it other than like I know that what's in the news if you want to read the newspapers and stuff. But he lost like a show. He lost a bunch of things. He said he was going to take some time to think about it. A lot of people took exception with his apology, saying that his apology sounded very much like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know I had this power over women to make the ones that were under, the ones that were, younger in the game feel so powerless where they couldn't say, hey, stop masturbating in front of me, or that's inappropriate or whatever. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that." And he's kind of made like a sneaky comeback into stand-up at times where he'll just pop up and do a set, and then people get real mad because they don't think he's served his sentence yet for whatever, for what he did. But a set surfaced from, I believe it was it Governors in Long Island?
I think so.
Governors in Long Island. He did a set, and he kind of does like the woe is me, I lost $35 million in a day. It's a bad day. It's such a bad day. It's almost laughable. But then people really took exception to, he did some jokes about race and Asians with small junk, which is, I'm like, come on, dude.
That's a way to win people over, is tell people how much money you lost.
Yeah, right.
That you had.
Oh, I lost $35 million. I'm still doing okay.
Yeah.
But people really got mad about the Parkland stuff, about him saying that, that like you just survived a shooting. Like, what do you know? Like, who are you to tell me what to do? But then the premise of the joke, I actually found, like, I like to deconstruct a joke to the root of the premise, which was kids today are now activists and they weren't in the 80s, right? Yeah. I almost feel like I love that idea, but I wish it was more self-deprecating where you're flipping it around and saying, instead of like crapping all over the kids now who survived a shooting and are now trying to change the world and being very confident about it and telling it, who's like, who are you to tell me I'm 50? Who are you to tell me what to do? Well, I mean, they know what they study the subject and they're going to tell you, and maybe just because they're young it bothers you, but why not flip it around and say, like, I was a lazy ass when I was 8. Like, when I was 18, I was just playing video games. Thank God Twitter wasn't around. I didn't have to work.
Right.
Like, now, if I was a kid nowadays, I'd feel lazy. Like, I don't have 100 followers on Twitter, and these kids have, like, millions. But I think the interesting thing for me is, and I wanted to get your input on it, is how long is there a time for comics to with the apology thing? Is there a shelf life on that, or how do you feel like that polices itself?
Well, Louis is a comic that didn't shy away from cringeworthy stuff.
Ever.
Like on Saturday Night Live, he did a long bit about child molesting in his monologue, which was hilarious. And he's proving it by, doing a set. And once he's obviously, this isn't polished. He's working on it. In comedy, you can't just write a joke. You have to perform it in front of a crowd.
Right, to find out where the lines are.
And now because of everything being shared, he's trying to work on a set, and that set gets shared by somebody taping it under a table, or it's got to be, right? Somebody's taping it under a table, and because it's controversial material tied in with the things that he's done, now people are just angry he's allowed to do his job.
But I think it comes back to that more. That, yes, the material is very edgy, but he's always been that guy.
Yeah, always been like that.
But I think
he said he hated his kid. One of his famous bits is how much he hates his kids.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. With the thing is, I don't think him saying anything is going to appease people who are still upset with him until he really addresses the sexual misconduct stuff. And I also think people comedically are upset because if there was a comic who was going to be able to deconstruct those issues and say, his issues of wanting to have women watch him masturbate, it would be him, right? Like, I didn't expect Kevin Hart, and I don't expect Kevin Hart to be able to address his past homophobic jokes in his act, because I don't think he has that. That's not his style. That's not his chops. That's not where he doesn't deconstruct, large racial issues and large, homophobic, like a stance that he had and how he's changed and why it's detrimental to LGBT youth to be, flippantly thrown around, breaking a dollhouse over your kid's head if you find out he's gay or he does anything gay. I don't expect him to do that. Louis, I feel like the expectation was that he wouldn't just ignore that. It just almost seemed like he goes, how long do I got to wait this out? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm on the bench.
Like he dipped
in the penalty box.
Like he dipped a foot in the pool and he's like, are we good? Nope. All right. Okay. All right. I'm out. I'll just hang out over here again.
I kind of felt like, because at some point, I mean, he's a master comic. At some point, he's got to come back into it, but knowing full well he's not going to be able to just dive back in and gloss over what happened. It's been enough time. I feel like this is like, there's been more frequency of this, and I think this is that dipping your foot in the pool. Be like, hey, can I come back and do this?
You guys good at this?
Still good at this. It's kind of what I've been doing my whole life.
Mm-hmm. I feel like, I don't know, man. I don't know him. Like I said, I just feel like if there was something, I feel like if he came out and did a joke, did a bit, a segment, a joke, whatever, or just a conversation about like really truly grasping why what he did was awful. And I feel like Kevin Hart didn't do that either. He would just say, I'm sorry, but it's also like, but why are you sorry? What did you learn? What about the words that you're saying were the things that were awful? I mean, we've all said awful things on stage that well, I don't know, awful, but I mean, things that you were like, nah, I don't really know if I'm married to that opinion all the way.
I mean, my last album, I look back on it and I'm like, this is very misogynist. A lot of the jokes were misogynistic, and I wouldn't write them now because I just feel like, not because I don't feel certain ways about certain things. I just don't feel it was I don't really believe in that much anymore. My attitudes have softened, and I've seen people suffer, and I don't think I want to sit there and pass judgment over everybody like that.
Which I think is okay to say. I feel like,
but I'm not changing that joke. It got laughs, and it was funny.
That thing crushes, man.
It did. I don't do that joke anymore, but it did work, and that was indicative of my work at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I think the funny thing
is, you're gonna take Eddie Murphy's jokes away too while you're at it.
I mean. Someone asked me the other day,
Get out of here.
Eddie Murphy used to do a bunch of like homophobic stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's probably why Eddie Murphy doesn't do stand-up now. Because Eddie Murphy, that was when he was killing it, right? And those jokes in 1986, 88, 89, were crushing it. He's wearing leather suits, just saying whatever he wants to in a funny way and killing.
Yeah.
And if you asked him to write an act now, he'd be like, that's probably not where I'm going to do well.
Isn't it funny how comedy works like that? There's only one rule that's ever been explained to me in comedy, which I still tell people when they ask, if they ask me for advice, for God knows why.
On accident.
They say, I say, comedy's the best because you can say whatever you want to say. But the kicker is, it better be funny.
Yeah.
Because the second it's not, and you lose the crowd, you're a hateful garbage piece of nothing.
It's a wrap, dude. That's one of the worst feelings in the world. And it doesn't even have to be something...
But if you made it funny, all is forgiven.
Right. And it doesn't even have to be something offensive. If you just... Like, I remember one of my friends, Lucas Seeley, funny guy. We have a different sense of humor. He's a little bit more juvenile. He goofs around. He doesn't care. He's like a prankster. He wants to talk about pranks and things that he did. And I remember saying to him, we were doing this contest in Seattle. It's like right when we started. And I was like, dude, just do your set. Like, don't screw around. Like, you're already out of this contest. Like, you're mathematically eliminated, and you're right before me. Like, just don't do anything
don't dig the hole, man.
Like, just don't go up there and do things I'll hate. Because, just don't go up there and do gimmicks because you're already out, and that would disqualify you if you weren't out. And he's like, yeah, man, I got it. First thing he does, opens humping a stool. I could just feel my blood boiling. And he is crushing it.
Yeah, monster hits.
Like, I remember I'm sitting there, and I'm just stewing, and this guy is laughing so hard, he can't even open the door to the bar to go get another drink. Like, he's laughing that hard, and he just annihilates the crowd. Yeah. Just annihilates. And I go up, and I spend the first, 8 minutes. I don't have, an 8-minute set, but I spend, the first 3 minutes just crapping all over him about how awful that whole set was and how just juvenile and trivial it was, to a room of people who adored him. And when I tried to go to my set, it was the saddest, like, awkward bombing I've ever had, to the point at which people could only...
Hey, he's not humping a stool. I hate him.
Yeah. Why is that stool being
Why is he
unhumped?
using words? There's a perfectly good stool and he's humped.
So he closed on humping a stool, by the way, too.
Oh, of course.
He opened and closed, and he called it a callback. Humping the stool the second time. And I remember, like, sitting there. I did so bad on that show that people eventually... they could only vote for one of two people, me or my friend Mike Cummings. And you know Mike, and Mike did not have a great set, but I was so terrible and people hated me so much. Half the crowd scraped my name out and wrote in Lucas. Lucas got more votes than I did on a show where he wasn't even allowed to be part of the contest.
This is Nearly Informed. If you like this show, find it on the radio.com app and subscribe.
The Starlight Lounge presents An Evening with the Progressive Box.
Old moon, yeah. That's Hugo, tickling the ivories. He just saved by bundling home and auto with Progressive. Gonna finally buy a ring for that gal of yours, Hugo? Send her my condolences. Hi-oh! This next one's for you two. There's a burglar in my heart. Thank you.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.